Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated. This episode is brought to you by IEQ Capital, an investment advisory firm that provides a premier endowment-style investment approach and family office services to eligible clients tailored to the unique needs of your family. The founding team behind IEQ Capital are entrepreneurs at heart with an uncompromising focus on clients and investment excellence. With over 30 years' experience as investors, they have a broad understanding of each asset class, deep institutional relationships, and a network that provides assets to exclusive private investment opportunities. Visit www.ieqcapital.com to learn more.
While neither Tom Ryan nor the show receives fees from IEQ Capital in connection with the sponsorship, nor is Tom a client of IEQ Capital, ICR must note the potential conflict of interest in recommending IEQ Capital in light of our potential for a future business relationship. All statements in this episode express the speaker's respected personal views and do not reflect the opinions or review of IEQ Capital.
I took the classic concept, but I modernized it. I wanted to really be mainstream. I didn't want these bings to go into the ethnic center part of the grocery store with empanadas and the spring rolls.
Identifying a niche is valuable, but the real triumph is in delivering a product that resonates with any audience.
There's 20% veg mixed into each one of these. I did it for the culinary reasons to make it taste better. Just a little differentiating. It's better for you because it's gluten-free. It's better for you because it's veg. But most importantly, kids love to eat them, and you can use your hands.
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR, and over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. In a landscape where standing out demands both innovation and accessibility, finding ways to connect with a broad audience is crucial. Today's guest has been on a career-long quest to revolutionize the culinary world by blending the old with the new and creating products that not only appeal to diverse audiences, but also prioritize health and taste. Today, we're lucky enough to sit down with Chef Ming Tsai, who is not only an Iron Chef, he's also a James Beard and Emmy Award winner and a chef partner at Baba at the Yellowstone Club in Big Sky, Montana. He's also president of the National Advisory Board for Family Reach and the author of 5 cookbooks. Chef Ming was the host and executive producer of the longest-running cooking series on PBS, Simply Ming, and just received acclaim for his new miniseries titled Simply Ming, Better For You. He founded MingsBings, a consumer packaged goods startup bringing chef-quality, better-for-you, convenient food to the frozen food aisle. Beyond being the first East meets West option of its kind, MingsBings supports the mission of the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and Family Reach. To date, Chef Ming has raised over $12 million for Family Reach. In 2022, Chef Ming became Iron Chef Ming Tsai as he joined the cast of 5 world-class chefs in the Netflix series Iron Chef: Quest for an Iron Legend. Let's enter the arena with Chef Ming Tsai. Chef, you've had an amazing career. You're just getting started.
Just getting started. 60 years old. I'm not so sure about that, Tom, but thanks.
I hear you. Hey, listen, I'm 62, and we're just trying our best every day. What's your earliest memory of cooking? Like, when did the light bulb go off, or how did you get influenced early in your life?
Yeah, the first dish I actually ever created myself was a Duncan Hines vanilla cake. And first of all, growing up Chinese, like growing up Mexican and most other immigrants, food is your entire culture, right? You're always talking about food. You're talking about the next meal. You're talking about what you're currently eating, and stories all revolve around the food. And so I was always interested. When I was 1, 2, 3, as soon as I could walk, I would be in the kitchen. Mostly because grandpa or grandma or mom or someone would throw me a scrap of whatever they were cutting or done. And I loved the fire, the smoke, the action. And bluntly, I say this all the time. I am, and I will always be hungry. And so fast forward to when I'm 6 years old, and I was just hanging out in the kitchen, and I was actually sick of stickball. All my buddies were playing stickball. I'm like, I'm going to bake a cake. So I grabbed this Duncan Hines cake mix. Pretty simple, right? A little bit of oil, a little bit of water or milk, 350 degrees, put it in. And in 30, 25 minutes, I had cake. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. But then what I noticed is after the cake cooled, I took a slice out. Then my friends came over. What did happen was they smiled. I'm like, wow, I actually did something with my two hands, basically by myself, and it made someone happy. So then fast forward 4 years to I'm 10, same house, Dayton, Ohio. We were Chinatown at the time in Dayton, Ohio. That was it. There's not a lot of Chinese. And we had a couple show up at the door. This is on a Saturday. Both my parents were gone somewhere doing whatever. My brother wasn't home either. I recognized them, and anyone, Chinese, white, black, doesn't matter. Anyone older that I knew was uncle and auntie. So I'm like, so I knew them. I'm like, uncle, come on in. In Chinese culture, you actually don't first ask ni hao ma, which is how are you? You actually ask chulama, which is have you eaten? Are you hungry? Because if you are, that gives us an opportunity to eat together. That's kind of what the whole culture is about. Let's eat. So I asked them that. They goes, I'm starved. I'm like, please sit down. I'll make you some fried rice. I'm 10, right? So every good Chinese household has leftover rice. Of course, we have garlic and ginger and scallions and eggs. I kind of banged it out. I put it together. I cut everything up. Honestly, it was about a 6 or 5 out of 10 in quality. But I serve it to them. And same thing, dude. They both looked up at me. I think they were amazed that a 10-year-old could make anything, but they smiled. And they're like, oh my God, this is so good. We are so happy. And so that was the super click, because that was like literally making something from scratch, not a Duncan Hines. And that's when I said, oh my God, I have a good skill that I love to do. This is probably going to be my career.
Yeah. Growing up in that environment, did you have one dish that like your family made that you're just like, oh, you got to make this for me all the time, like that you just absolutely loved?
Yeah, not just one though, dude. So my mom's salt and pepper shrimp, my grandfather's scallion pancakes, and then my dad's red roast pork shoulder. It tastes so rich and luscious. So those 3 dishes would be the ones they'll have that on my island when I go away.
Yeah, yeah. So like fast forward from 10, a few more years, you grew up like your family had a restaurant, right? And you worked with them. What did you learn from that experience?
So the Mandarin Kitchen was my mom's gig. My dad was chief scientist at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was an aeronautical engineer, still is. He's 94. He still works full-time. So my mom, we left home early. We both went to prep school. So by the time I'm 15, the house was empty. And my mom was a great home cook. She did cooking classes in Dayton, was encouraged by all her friends, you should open up a Chinese restaurant. Do your traditional Mandarin-style food. It will kill. Because again, there wasn't that many Chinese anything. Certainly nothing very authentic. So she opened the Mandarin Kitchen, and it was best job ever for me, right? I'm 14, 15, 16. I'm the manager, but I'm also the rice cooker, the janitor, the dishwasher, and
like you did every job.
And the egg roll cart boy.
One question I really wanted to ask you is all these experiences, right? To me, like being a chef from the outside looking in is kind of a left brain thing. There's creativity to it. And then you get into the restaurant, you've done every job, you get a little bit older and you realize, wow, opening a restaurant, you need to know what unit economics are and margins and labor and all that. How did those two like left, right brain things collide? Like what was your big wake up call when you're like, wow, you have to be able to make money at this to perpetuate it,
I was lucky because I have a mechanical engineering degree. So I was very right brain.
So you're a numbers guy.
Yeah, I did Excel spreadsheets before any restaurant ever got an Excel spreadsheet. And I was a good Chinese son, right? You had doctoral engineer, so I chose engineering. But it's a very astute question because when I went to Paris, I started cooking in Paris every summer while studying engineering at school. And before I graduated, I told my parents, and I already did cordon bleu. They knew I wanted to be a chef, and I wanted to do French Asian. I call it East West now, or East meets West. And being, again, Asian Chinese, schooling is a high priority. So I went to Paris for 2 years after graduating from college and had the most amazing time, but then did go back to schooling to Cornell. I did the hotel program there. I got a master's at Cornell. And that is, to answer your question, that's when I learned about the analytical part of owning a restaurant or hotel. What should it cost per square foot? What should your food cost be, beverage cost, labor cost? How do you do marketing? This is way before social media and virality and all that, so marketing is more traditional. Same idea though. So after graduating with that master's, I figured, okay, I might as well try the hotel business because I have a master's in it, with the goal I'm going to open my own restaurant one day. Well, let's go open some hotels, because opening anything, a hotel or restaurant, the cream floats to the top. If you're good, you're going to stand out. If you're bad, you're going to go away. And I made all of my rookie mistakes opening 3 different restaurants at the Intercontinental Hotel in Chicago. And
what was the biggest mistake?
I do think there's so many people out there that want to make $1 off of you, right? Okay, if you buy this many, I'll give you this discount. And I think, and I'm learning it still today, price pieces is great. But if you have to buy 800,000 of them, step back, right? Because we're going to be in business 12 years. Perfect. No, you may not be. So just buy a year's worth, right? And so I do think you have to really look at, it doesn't matter what it costs sometimes. It's just the commitment you have to make of that cash. You don't want to put $10,000 into something because you got it for half price. You may never use the other half of this stuff. Definitely, that was a great lesson. Cheaper is better, except when you don't end up using it all.
Yeah. And look, you know what? The quicker you can make mistakes, the better. And that's kind of that's how you're successful to this day. I wanted to ask you, I know you describe your cooking style as East meets West. When did it click in your mind that that's kind of what you were doing? Because my guess is it just kind of came naturally. And then you're like, wow, all of a sudden this seems unique.
It came naturally, but it came when I was cooking in Paris. So as soon as I got to Paris, specifically, I wanted to learn about desserts and pastries, because in Asian cuisine, we're very weak there, right? And that's historically the fact that we just didn't have milk and cream in Asia until last 100 years. So I really want to learn about that. And then this is the first year after graduating, and I'm in Paris, and I'm working at Fauchon. So I'm there at 4:30 every morning. We're baking croissants. We're doing all that. We're eating lunch like at 11 o'clock, and the phone rings, and someone picks it up, and then the cook, there's like 30 cooks, right, and chefs. And someone yells out in French, like, "Est-ce qu'il y a un extra? Is there an extra?" And my French was good enough. I had no idea what an extra was. So I asked my friend next to me, I says, "C'est quoi? What's extra?" I says, "Extra is a restaurant is looking for someone to cook tonight. So they always call Fauchon because there's 30 cooks there." And I'm like, "Oh, I'll do that. What's this restaurant?" And so I showed up to Natasha. I meet this great chef named Jean-Marc. I became a sous chef. It was him and me, and then the dishwasher. And it's a great little restaurant, but we would crank. We would do 100 sometimes, the two of us, in this puny little kitchen. And Natasha, the patron, she loves specials. And so I'm like, "Jean-Marc, can I do a special?" He's like, "Sure, of course." And so I would bike to Chinatown. I would get all the normal Asian products that I use. And to Jean-Marc, it was like, "What is this? What is that?" So it became a dual learning experience. He goes, "I'm going to show you how to make crêpe Suzette today." I'm like, "Great, I'm going to show you how to make a spring roll today."
Going over to the French culture and kind of being in the industry, like you kind of stood out, right? You were unique.
Honestly, I was unique.
In a way.
Yeah, in a way. I was unique in France. I was very unique at Fauchon because I was the only 6-foot Chinese American that spoke French. But what happened in Natasha, so the first dish I did, and this, to answer your question, was my first real East-West dish, is I love saumonier, right? And I loved it. They always stuff it with rice pilaf, and you have your beurre blanc. So I did a garlic chive fried rice stuffing that went into the sole, and I made a black bean beurre rouge, and it was freaking delicious. It was much different than anything that I'd ever seen. And Jean-Marc loved it. And then when Natasha ate it, she's like, "Oh my God, you got to do specials every day. This is fantastic." She was a very hip restaurant, and she loved that we were doing something that wasn't just straight traditional French. So that's how it really kind of blossomed, and then that's how we started creating it.
In such a competitive marketplace and bustling industry, it's incredibly impressive how certain people manage to stand out. I asked Chef Ming how his television opportunities came about in that crowded landscape and how things grew from there.
So it literally came to me in Santa Fe. I was executive chef at Santa Cafe. In late 95, after I became exec chef, the Food Network came through Santa Fe. And they had a show called Dining Around. It was Nina Griscom and Alan Richmond. They did 3 chefs in a city. You got 10 minutes, edited. Hey, chef, I want to introduce you to what do you do? What's your signature dish? And it turned out that it was a show that people watched, but it was their talent search show, because Food Network didn't say that. But they didn't have a lot of chefs on TV that were good at all. And I don't know if you can get it, I'm a pretty confident, sarcastic person. Yeah, and I remember the first thing I've ever said on TV, I looked right into the camera and I'm like, hey, I'm Ming Tsai. I was born Chinese. I'm still Chinese. And I'm going to make you a great lamb dish. And the producer laughed. And the producer I'm like, was that stupid? No, but the producer actually laughed. So after the whole segment, they're like, you have presence. You might want to think about doing this. I'm like, sure. So they asked me to come back and do Ready, Set, Cook, which is the game show. But while I was doing this show, I knew this was my opportunity for my personality to shine. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about who could connect with the audience and all. So I threw tomatoes at the audience and I engaged them, and I went over to Susser's kitchen, and it slowed me down, but to make fun of them or whatever. And again, Food Network loved that. So then they asked me back to do Chef du Jour, and I became their Asian expert. And that's when the executive was like, we'd like to give you a show. And that's how East Meets West started. And I remember doing my first show. We did 80 shows in 2 weeks, right? We did 5 a day. We cranked them out. The first show ever on East Meets West was a turkey shumai show. I used chipotle. I used turkey 2 ways. And that's the show they submitted. My first television show ever, first episode, won, submitted to the Emmys, and I win, which is just absurd. And it was Food Network's first Emmy as well. So that obviously catapulted me to the next level.
So what's an Iron Chef for people who don't know? And like this quest for an Iron Legend on Netflix, like I know you're all over the place, but the Netflix thing seems really cool. Like what's that about?
So an Iron Chef, it's been done a few times, right? The original was done in Japan. First time I saw it, and I watched every episode. Kenichi, Sakai, and Morimoto. Loved the judges. Everything was great. So that was the original Iron Chef. Food Network ended up buying the rights to do Iron Chef America. And that's the first time I competed on Iron Chef. And proudly, I go up against Bobby. Bobby Flay was an Iron Chef at the time. So I was one of a year they're doing it. They asked me, it was Battle Duck. I'm Chinese. I can't lose Battle Duck to a Caucasian. That would that's career ending. So I felt the pressure of my entire heritage on me. 2 billion people like, you better not lose, dude. And I beat Bobby, Bobby did not lose a lot then. So that was my first iteration. So to answer your question, Iron Chef is a cooking competition where there's a secret ingredient, and usually you get an hour to make 5 dishes. And you have to use that ingredient. It's the hardest physical thing I've ever done. And high pressure, because if you make a mistake or you burn the thing, you're out. You don't have time to redo it.
I wanted to ask you, about writing cookbooks. What is, to me, like I wrote a book that no one has ever read. People actually read your cookbooks. To me, it's so daunting to start that. Like, how do you get pumped up to do it? Or what's your inspiration?
I don't think you've done one thing that I did is run and own your own restaurant, right?
Right. No, I haven't.
And that usually is the first step to a cookbook, because most chefs' first cookbook, I'm thinking Daniel Blewett, Alfred Bertali, is the cookbook of your first restaurant, right? Because your first restaurant that becomes your signature cuisine, that becomes your style, that becomes you. I wanted to show the food that I'm doing it. And I did tweak some of the recipes to make them a little bit easier, right? Still delicious, but just a little easier. I wanted to make it a little bit more approachable. You feel so satisfied and legitimized when you have your first book. Was I a better cook once I had it? No, I was the same person. But you feel like, okay, here's my tome now. And it's one of the first steps, I think, in the chef world is to write a book after your restaurant.
That's cool. So as if you don't have enough going on, you now have a food CPG company featuring MingsBings. You must be off your rocker taking this on, but I have eaten MingsBings. They're unbelievable.
Thank you.
What is a Bing, and what inspired you to create this thing?
A bing in Chinese is a traditional dim sum item. You've had them before. Everyone listening's had them before. So I took the classic concept of a bing, but I modernized it. I wanted to create a wrapper that was crispy and gluten-free. So I came up with this, brown rice wrapper. It's really a lumpia wrapper. And then I want to just fill it with deliciousness, but to sticking with true East-West, which is an Eastern technique, making the bing, using Western flavor profile. I did not specifically, by design, want to do Asian flavors out the door because I didn't want to because I'm a Chinese chef, obviously an East-West chef. I didn't want these bings to go into the ethnic center part of the grocery store with empanadas and the spring rolls because I think you'd get lost. I wanted to go where Hot Pockets were. I wanted to really be mainstream. And mainstream is cheeseburger flavor, ham and cheese, right? I mean, just Americana flavors. And so we launched in February and COVID started March. So I'm going to do this company and then COVID the next month, which, not great timing, couldn't sample, chain, of course, getting ingredients. But what was interesting was every CEO I called picked up their phone. I called Bob Redmill's CEO, picked up the phone because no one had anything to do. He picked up his phone. And so I made a lot of great contacts. Fortunately, we got a call from Costco. This is almost a year ago. And they're like, look, we love your brand marketing. We love your gluten-free wrapper. We love this, that it's a handheld. And they're like, well, we want Americana flavors, right? I want you to do a cheeseburger, a ham and cheese, a buffalo chicken, a Southwest taco. So we did them all, presented it to them in the Livermore, which is Northern California, 60 stores. They loved them. I then told them afterwards, by the way, I did still keep them a little bit better for you. There's 20% veg mixed into each one of these. There's cauliflower rice in the cheeseburger. There's potatoes in the ham and cheese, just to lower the cholesterol, the fat, and the sodium, and also to make them taste better. Because if it's straight burger, it's a little too tough. And if it's straight ham and cheese, it's too salty. So I did it for the culinary reasons to make it taste better. And again, just a little differentiating. It's better for you because it's gluten-free. It's better for you because it's veg. But most importantly, kids love to eat them, and you can use your hands.
How about the National Advisory Council for Family Reach? I know you're the chairman there. What's that all about?
My work with them is literally the second most proud thing I've done in my life next to my two sons, right? Family Reach is the only national charity that financially helps families dealing with cancer. A normal cancer diagnosis average in this country will cost a family $200,000, right? And the average gross income of a household in America is $60,000. So you do that math right there. You get a cancer diagnosis, you are very close to financial strife and then losing your cars and then losing your home and then, of course, worse, losing your life. And what ends up happening, if you don't have capacity, I was lucky. I've been through cancer in my family, all that, and I have capacity. But the last thought on my mind is I'm going to end up homeless because of this cancer, because of my wife's diagnosis. But that's a reality for so many Americans, which is wrong, right? We should have national health care. Everyone. It shouldn't be the poorer you are, the higher chance you're going to die from a cancer diagnosis. That's a broken system. So what Family Reach does, and I'm so proud, I've been now, it's my 13th year with them. When I met them, it was one person, Carla Tardiff, and I met her and I ended up doing a wish for one of her patients that her last wish was to be able to eat at Blue Ginger and meet me. I did the best food I could possibly do. And Nestor, the father, pulled me aside and said, listen, you need to know, not only would we not be here without Carla and Family Reach, we wouldn't have our home because our bills were mounting, and my wife had to stop working to take care of Darlene. We would be homeless. So Family Reach is something that it's saved. It can't save my daughter's life, but it has saved our family. And the guilt patients have that bankrupting their family because of a diagnosis is so overwhelming. So I actually pulled Carla aside that night and said, listen, I can get you a national platform. I'm so moved by what Nestor just told me. There's a way that I could do an event. I actually named it right there. I'm going to call it Cooking Live. And I'm going to bring the best chefs of every city that we go to. And we're just going to cook in front of everyone. And that started. And I've done now 26 of these. And I just finally did my first $1 million Cooking Live. It was a great event. And we raised $1 million. And it's something I really encourage people to look at. If you need help, if you know someone with a cancer diagnosis that is in financial strife, that can't pay the bills, go to familyreach.org, and it connects all of the potential free things that the government, state government, federal government, and food banks and transportation, because you can get free rides from here. You can get free food from here. So it's a way of getting the resources that don't cost money. My ultimate goal is I want to send a big box of food ready to go, semi-prepared, right? No one can come home from the hospital and start cooking a meal. They just want to be able to put water in the ramen, heat it up, and you have a meal. And so there's a huge opportunity for all these billion-dollar corporations to get involved to help families that are dealing with cancer. So it can be a huge win-win because, again, I've been touched by this, and it's the worst possible scenario to when your kid or your loved one, your wife gets cancer. If you don't have the financial capacity, it makes it 10 times harder, and it's not fair.
100%. Well, I have a last question for you, Ming. What is it like hobnobbing with all these amazing chefs in the world? It feels kind of like the Rat Pack to me. It's you and Bobby Flay and Guy. And, it seems like, at least on TV, there's natural chemistry between everyone. Maybe tell us about a fun experience that you've had without the cameras rolling with some of those guys.
One of my favorite people on this planet, and I love him almost as much as my father, is Jacques Pepin. Right? Oh my God, he's a master. He literally, as a technician, he can do anything. His knife skills, his butchering, make a terrine, make a pâté, make a soufflé, make an omelet. One of my favorite moments with Jacques, it was the first annual Scottsdale Food and Wine Fest. And the class, is like 300 people came to it. We're in a little auditorium, and it was about matching food with wine. So in the beginning, like, Chef Tsai, what is your take on matching food and wine? What is your philosophy? And I'm like, and I start waxing poetry about, if it's a spicy dish, you don't want to do red wine because the tannin of that wine would be way too tannic. So you want something more like a Riesling or a Gewürztraminer that has a little bit of residual sweetness. And then if it's a deep mushroomy dish that's when you do want a big red wine. And so I went with a bunch of combinations, and basically you can match it or you can contrast it. So I did probably about a 5-minute routine about my whole theory of matching food and wine. And then I had I had a good applause. It wasn't amazing. It was just, that's very good, Chef Tsai, clap, clap, clap. And then I said, Chef Pepin, what is your theory on food and wine? And he looked up and he says, the best wine in the world is the one in front of you. And he just took his glass up and he got a standing ovation. That was it. I mean, he talked for 10 seconds. I talked for 5 minutes. And that's the power of Jacques.
Chef Ming's intense curiosity and relentless drive to push the boundaries of food and hospitality keep him at the top of his game. Whether on TV, in the kitchen, or on the shelves of your local grocery store, his ability to blend creativity with approachability is the key to his continued success. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Chef Ming for joining me on the show today. His latest venture with MingsBings is a great reflection of his innovative spirit, and we'll keep watching as he conquers Iron Chef as well as the grocery aisle. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.
This episode is brought to you by IEQ Capital, an investment advisory firm that provides a premier endowment-style investment approach and family office services to eligible clients tailored to the unique needs of your family. The founding team behind IEQ Capital are entrepreneurs at heart with an uncompromising focus on clients and investment excellence. With over 30 years' experience as investors, they have a broad understanding of each asset class, deep institutional relationships, and a network that provides access to exclusive private investment opportunities. Visit www.ieqcapital.com to learn more.
While neither Tom Ryan nor the show receives fees from IEQ Capital in connection with the sponsorship, nor is Tom a client of IEQ Capital, ICR must note the potential conflict of interest in recommending IEQ Capital in light of our potential for a future business relationship. All statements in this episode express the speaker's respected personal views and do not reflect the opinions or review of IEQ Capital.